Hôm nay thì quý thầy còn có mặt với quý Phật tử khoảng một tiếng đồng hồ. Rồi sau đó thì quý thầy rời khỏi đây. Thì trước nhất là xin chào hết tất cả quý vị.
The Master said, he has 1 hour here and he has to go to the airport and leave for another destination. He wishes you all well.
Thì thầy xin chia sẻ một chút xíu là trong cái khi chúng ta có mặt ở cuộc đời thì chúng ta sống là mà làm như thế nào để mình sống với cái sự sống đích thực của mình. Thì hôm nay quý thầy sẽ chia sẻ một chút để cho quý vị có thể kinh nghiệm được cái sự sống thật đó.
Tonight he's going to share the way how to live your life completely in the present, to fully live your life.
Thì để chúng ta có 5 cái yếu tố để mình nhận thức được cái đời sống. Thì 5 cái yếu tố đó là cái sự tương giao của các cái cơ quan là mắt, là tai, là mũi, là lưỡi, là thân, là ý, để nó tương giao và nó tiếp xúc với 6 cái trần cảnh, tức là sắc, thanh, hương, vị, xúc và pháp.
In order to live completely present, you need to have awareness or have consciousness through your 5 senses. That is, eye sense, ear sense, smell, taste, touch.
Thì cái yếu tố đó khi cái sự tương giao đó nó tạo thành cái yếu tố đó nó gọi là sắc ở trong kinh Bát Nhã.
So what do we do with the 5 senses? With 5 senses, when there are 5 objects of the sense, right? External objects of the sense. When the external object of the sense are in contact, then we have consciousness, and through the consciousness is how we, if we pay attention to that and be aware of that, then that's how you really live in the present moment.
Thì khi mà 6 cái yếu tố, 6 căn khi nó tiếp xúc với 6 trần thì nó sẽ cho ra một cái hiệu ứng. Một cái hiệu ứng đó là mỗi người chúng ta đều có cái cảm thọ đó là dễ chịu, khó chịu hay không dễ chịu, không khó chịu.
So when the sense object is in contact with the external object, so we have consciousness, right? From that consciousness, so that consciousness is cognition, right? When that happens, the next step is feelings. After contact, there's feeling. Feeling, there are 3 type of feelings that we experience the world. There are only 3. One is pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral.
Và như vậy thì ví dụ như chúng ta nhìn lên cái bình hoa thì chúng ta thấy hoa đẹp thì nó cho mình một cái cảm giác dễ chịu, phải không? Và cái hoa xấu thì nó sẽ cho mình cái cảm giác khó chịu. Và cái có khi mình nhìn thì mình không thấy dễ chịu hay là khó chịu gì hết. Yeah.
So for example, if you look at the flower, if it's a flower that you like, then it's going to give you a pleasant feeling about the flower. If it's something that you don't like for whatever reason, then it'll give you an unpleasant feeling about what you see. Or it could be you're just looking at the flower and you have no opinion of it at all. So that's the neutral feeling. It's neither pleasant nor unpleasant.
Thì cái đó là rồi khi mà mình cái cảm giác đó mang cái cảm thọ đó có đó thì bắt đầu nó gọi là trong đó là sắc rồi tới thọ, phải không? Thì kế đó là cái yếu tố thứ 3 đó là tưởng đó là khi hai cái cảm thọ dễ chịu khó chịu hay không dễ chịu khó chịu, 3 cái cảm thọ đó có mặt thì cái tưởng này nó nhận biết ba cái cảm thọ đó.
So the next step, so there's contact and then there's feelings, right? The next comes is mental formation. So mental formation is based on what you see or what you hear, plus the feeling that you have about the object. There's a mental formation about what you see.
Như vậy thì ba cái yếu tố là một là chúng ta tiếp xúc, hai là chúng ta cảm nhận cái cảm thọ, và cái thứ ba là chúng ta nhận biết cái cảm thọ đó. Như vậy thì đó là ba cái yếu tố đó rồi nha. Thì tới cái yếu tố thứ tư đó là phản ứng. Thì cái sự phản ứng đó là ví dụ giờ mình thấy mình ra lạnh, thì khi mình ra mình tiếp xúc với lạnh thì mình liền phản ứng, mình đi vô để mình tìm một cái gì đó mình mặc cho ấm, thì cái đó nó gọi là phản ứng, là hành.
So after feeling and mental formation, so mental formation, you have the concept about something, right? Mental formation, you have, let's say if you go outside and it's cold, so you have a concept of, okay, I'm cold, right? And then so what comes next is they call fabrication or action. Okay, so you do something about what you are experiencing.
Thì cái yếu tố thứ tư đó là thức, đó là mình kinh nghiệm toàn bộ 4 cái trước, thì đó thành ra nó gọi là thức. Thức đó là kinh nghiệm lại.
So and then the fifth step is consciousness itself. Now this consciousness is different from the sense and its object, where you sense, you see an object, you have a consciousness about what you see. Okay, I see an object, right? But this consciousness here is knowing or consciousness of everything.
Thì cái đời sống của mình thì nó chỉ có, nó gọi là một thực tại, là chỉ có chừng đó thôi. Đó là một thực tại của đời sống. Nếu như mà mình chỉ nhận biết và chỉ kinh nghiệm cái thực tại đó thôi thì nó sẽ không có khổ đau.
So a single moment of life is the combination of that. Is sense, in contact with sense object, comes out feeling, mental formation, a concept about your feeling of that, or mental formation about it, or fabrication, right? And then consciousness of all that. Now, if you see things as is, just as it is, then there's no suffering. Is when you fabricate based on your biases, based on your experience about what you're doing, then suffering can occur.
Nhưng mà sở dĩ mà mình có khổ đau đó là tại vì mình tạo thành một cái tôi thì cái tôi đó nó gọi là nó chia cái thực tại đó ra làm hai, tức là một cái là nó thích và một cái nó không thích.
So how does suffering come about with the experience, with the consciousness of what you experience? Is when you identify there is an I am, right? And there are two things that happens there. You experience that you're conscious about what's going on or what you're experiencing, and you have either the mind of I don't want it or I want it.
Phải không quý vị? Thấy trong đời sống của mình là cái gì mà mình thấy đẹp, dễ chịu thì mình thích, cái gì mình thấy xấu, thấy khó chịu thì mình liền không thích, mình ghét.
So, for example, you look at a flower, and if it's something you like, that means you want it, right? And then you enjoy it, right? But if it's something that you don't like, it brings you suffering. Suffering here doesn't mean that you're completely, suffering like the words general people equate to suffering. Suffering could mean dissatisfaction, not wanting things the way that you want it, versus the opposite side is wanting or having something that you want or you expect.
Nếu như mà mình khi mà mình cái gì mình thích á, mà cái gì mình thích mình cho là dễ chịu, là an lạc, là hạnh phúc gì đó, thì mình luôn luôn là mình muốn nắm giữ cái đó, mình muốn cái đó nó tồn tại. Nhưng mà cũng như bữa trước mình nói đó, là nó không có tồn tại, cho nên vì vậy mà mình mới khổ.
So, for example, if you experience something that you like, the wanting mind appears, right? I want it. I want to hold on to it, or I want to keep it. But the truth of the matter is, nothing lasts forever, right? You may have it, but you lose it. When the experience of losing something you want, or you want to hold on to it, that is the basis of suffering. Does that make sense so far?
Và cái mà mình cho là khổ, là khó chịu, là khổ đó, thì mình muốn dẹp nó đi, mình muốn loại trừ nó ra, nhưng mà nó là một thực tại, nó hiện hữu, cho nên vì vậy mình không có thể loại trừ nó được, cho nên do đó mà mình khổ là vì mình muốn dẹp nó.
The opposite is true. Is something that you don't like, you want to get rid of it. You don't want it. You want it completely out of your sight, or out of your life, or out of the condition that you're in. But you suffer because it's there, right? That you have to confront it. So that creates the suffering for you.
Thì bây giờ mình muốn sống để mình gọi là mình đạt được cái gọi là cái đời sống đích thực, gọi là cái hạnh phúc đích thực á, thì mình nhận diện ra cái bản ngã mà nó đang phản ứng đó, thì mình buông cái bản ngã đó xuống, thì để mình trả cái sự sống nó về với lại cái thực tại của nó.
So, in order to overcome the suffering aspect, so what you need to do is, when you are conscious, you're going to look at something, or when you're experiencing something, conjure up a feeling, right? You have a feeling about it, you're conscious about your feeling, how you feel about it. You don't like it, you like it, whatever, right? So the immediate thing is to reflect back, see the mind, see yourself, the mind of not wanting, the mind of wanting, the mind that suffers. Just reflecting back at that. So you basically, what happens is you disconnect yourself from what is bringing you suffering, right? So you disassociate yourself. You're reflecting back. So the consciousness, the seeing, the observer is no longer the person that is experiencing it. Even though the experience is still there, you're just separating in the consciousness from there. By separating, you separate yourself from what is creating you suffering, then that begins to ease the suffering, or you begin to let go of what brings you suffering. Does that make sense so far? Yes?
Sometimes it's so fast you react and then you fall. So the consciousness sometimes is not there.
Yes.
And it's so automatically you suffer.
But yeah, it will be fast. Câu này nói đôi khi á, những cái này cái sự phản ứng này nó tới rất là nhanh, mình không có kịp mình chụp nó được.
Nó sự gì mình phản ứng nhanh đó là vì ở quá khứ mình đã quân tập nó vô trong đó rồi, cho nên bây giờ nó mới phản ứng nhanh. Cho nên vì vậy mà mình tập là mình đi thiền hành, mình chánh niệm, mình tỉnh giác đó, mình làm chậm nó lại. Thì khi cái cuộc sống mình chậm thì cái phản ứng nó sẽ chậm lại, và khi phản ứng nó chậm đó thì mình mới bắt đầu nó mình mới chuyển hóa nó được bằng cách là mình chỉ thấy cái trạng thái, cái cảm giác thôi, mà mình không có phản ứng ra đối tượng, thì nó mới hết.
Yeah, it says that, yes. It comes really fast because we've trained ourselves to just react. Reaction is not being conscious, and you let your reaction come, right? You're just reacting, right? You have no consciousness of what's going on. You see the object, you react right away. That becomes, is a habit. Another way you may hear it is karma. Karma is action, action that you have no consciousness of it. So you repeat the cycle, right? It's just like if you look at neuroscience, when you do something once, it creates a pathway, neurons to neuron. That's how you're going to react to that incident. If a similar incident happens again, you react the same way. Now you create a habit. What you're creating is a neural pathway. The more you repeat that neural pathway is going to be expanded and it's going to react quicker, right? So that you learn how to dodge something that's in danger, right? So it becomes a habit, right? So that's why it's so fast. So the way we practice here is to slow everything down, right? So we sit, we meditate, we watch. We watch, like in Vipassana. So you start to observe body sensation, or you observe your feelings, right? Or when we're walking meditation, you're walking slowly. So we pay attention to each step, everything we do. That way, what we're doing is we're expanding our consciousness, making it more sensitive, so that we're able to watch our mind. We slow down the process. We're able to recognize as we move through those 5 steps. Contact. If you practice this after several months, you'll find you'll get the feel of that.
Tại vì khi mình trở về đó là mình mới cảm nhận lại hết cái cảm giác, cái trạng thái mà mình vừa thấy nó đẹp thì mình có cái cảm giác mình thích, mình vừa thấy xấu thì nó liền có cái cảm giác mình không thích, tức là mình sân. Thì cái trạng thái, cái cảm giác đó mình trở về, mình tập để mình thấy ra nó thôi đó, thì mình không có hướng ra đối tượng đó, thì từ từ thì cái phản ứng nó sẽ chậm lại, và cái phản ứng đó nó sẽ hết, chứ mình không có làm gì để cho nó hết được, chỉ là mình trở về để mình thấy ra.
So, what we need to do in the practice is to recognize, to observe our aspect of how we're responding to things. Right? You cannot get rid of it. You cannot get rid of something by getting rid of something you have no control. And the suffering is actually in the mind, right? For example, somebody may look at an apple and they may be happy. Another person, they look at an apple, they might not be happy. Maybe they got food poisoning in the past, so they have different biases towards that. So it's not about the object. It's about how you perceive and how you respond to that. So let's say when you go from consciousness contact with the object, right? The next thing is feeling. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral? Now, those are only the feelings. Unpleasantness can bring anger, right? Pleasantness can bring clinging, grasping, wanting more, or greed, right? Now, and let's say anger, right? If you are not aware, then you become anger. You process the anger, right? But realistically, is you have an anger that comes out of unpleasantness feeling, right? So in the practice, as we slow things down, and when we are aware that it's unpleasant, and we maintain that awareness, then anger cannot manifest. Does that make sense? Because you're looking at, pleasantness. It's just like an object. It's just something that is an event. It's not you. It is when you have no conscious or no separation between the event and you, then sort of like you become the event and you continue that process. You react upon that, right? Anger. And the anger can build up to other things. And then the anger becomes the object, and then again, it gives you different feelings, and then you have a mental formation about it, you fabricate it in your mind, and you create a story out of it. Now that becomes, see how it kind of spin out of control, and you continue the suffering. But if you just recognize it as, unpleasant feeling, then suffering, you can stop suffering right there and then. Or if you see, let's say you can't go from there, you miss that part, and there's a mental formation in your mind. If you just recognize the mental formation, recognizing it itself will stop. Does that make sense? So we can stop at different stages. But the very first, the quickest is when there's feelings. That's the quickest, the fastest way to stop any reaction to what you're experiencing.
Cho nên vì mình đã hình thành một cái bản ngã nó nhiều quá rồi, thì cái đời sống hoạt động của mình nó hoạt động trên cái bản ngã không à. Cho nên vì vậy mà nó không có để cho cái tánh biết tự biết các pháp và tự biết được cái cảm thọ, cái cảm giác đó, mà là cái bản ngã nó luôn luôn có phản ứng. Cho nên bây giờ mình tu là mình thấy ra để mình thực tập, mình làm chậm lại để cho cái bản ngã đó nó tự nó lần lần nó sẽ ít đi. Chứ không thì cứ mỗi lần mà thí dụ như mỗi lần mà mình thích hay mình ghét đó là mình có cái thái độ phản ứng vô, thì cái thái độ đó nó sẽ tạo thành một cái xung lực, nó nhanh và nó mạnh, nó nhanh, nó cứ đẩy, nó thúc đẩy mình đi, rồi mình phản ứng rất là nhanh.
So if we don't have the practice and we follow a habitual tendency, right? What that manifests is it manifests an attitude, right? You have an attitude towards something. Then, as we continue to building that attitude drives how you respond to things. And it drives whether you suffer or not. Right? So we need to get out of that. So moving from the thinking mind or the being mind, being, in response to what you're experiencing, right? Separating that, moving away from what you call the ego, right? The I, me, and mine. Only the I, me, and mine suffers. Okay? But the call it non-ego. I won't call it the true self. Sometimes it's called the true self, right? The true self never suffer, and it is the true self that recognizes the experience, versus the ego that experience suffering and everything else. So by slowing down, by recognizing, by reflecting back, what you're doing is you're moving to the true self, the non-ego self, and you're observing. You're still operating, but you're observing, but you're not reacting from that first person, that egocentric mind.
Thì như này, trở lại với này đó là mình thấy là khi đó lúc đầu mình nói đó, thì cái đó nó chỉ là có tánh biết và nó ứng vào trong sáu căn để nó tiếp xúc với sáu trần thôi, thì nó ra một cái hiệu ứng là dễ chịu hay khó chịu đó thôi, phải không? Đó là một cái thực tại. Thì thay vì mình sống với cái đó, nhưng mà bây giờ mình đã tạo thành một cái bản ngã để nó có ý thức so sánh, đối chiếu, phân biệt, rồi phân tích, rồi kết luận, và nó thành ra một cái đời sống của cái gọi là tập đế. Cho nên mình cứ sống với cái đó, và cái đó nó tạo thành một cái thế giới mà phiền não, khổ đau. Còn bây giờ mình tu là mình trở về để mình buông cái đó ra, để cho cái sự sống thực kia nó hiện tiền vậy thôi, chứ không có gì khó. Nhưng mà khó cái là khó là mình buông được cái bản ngã là thôi.
So as we live without training the mind, training ourselves, like I say, we create habits, right? That habits create an attitude toward things, right? And then from the attitude, then we have judgment. We have judgment about everything, and most of that, and it's often either you don't like or you like. They're always this extreme, right? So you don't see things as they are. Right? So when you don't see things as they are, then you're going to fall into that trap. into that way of living, that way of experiencing, and you just repeat karmically, you repeat that. In a sense, is that the relative truth or the relative reality is you react based relatively to what you see or what you're in contact with through your sixth sense, five sense, or sixth sense, even the thought itself. Does that make sense? Right. So we want to, yes.
So is the Thai saying we have a tendency to go to extremes, to really like something or really dislike it?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a behavior kind of builds up to that level, right?
Yes. But it goes to that level. But the nature of it is like and dislike, right? Like and dislike, then there's relative to how much you dislike something or how, or how much you like it. So from those, then it can, then it manifests into extreme based on your biases, based on what you want, based on your past experience. All contribute to that. And the more we allow ourselves to be in that cycle, right, then we build up this the inability to stop, to see things clearly. So we like I say, like neural pathway, you automatically just jump onto one way highway or the other. It's only when we step out of that and we see it from let's say consciousness. Consciousness doesn't have, or the true self, you can call that, doesn't pick and choose. It just knows, and it just act accordingly, right? When you're in that karmic cycle, you're not acting, you're reacting based on external contact, and you're reacting based on your habitual tendency, right? So there's no consciousness in there. But when we're able to see things, experience things in a full conscious way, without the ego, without the I, me, and my, then you can see things a lot clearer. And you have a choice then, right? Just as if you look at anger as I am angry, how do you get rid of anger? If you are the anger, you can't. You manifest yourself into the anger, right? But if you look at it, if you're able to slow down and stop, I have an anger. It's an object. If it's an object, you have a choice, right? You can deal with it however you want. You can even drop it right there. Right?
Thì quý vị thấy khó không? Khó ứng dụng không?
So what do you think about that? And you think it's easy to overcome? That mindset? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Concerning anger, so in my recollection of all the sutras, the Buddha never got angry, to my recollection.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I get angry,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like it happens a lot to people, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like sometimes maybe I need to get angry to defend myself, as long as I'm aware of being angry. So my question to the Thai is, basically, is there always a better way than not getting angry? Or what if somebody gets angry to accomplish a purpose, and they're at least aware that their anger is not out of control?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Anh nói là đôi khi cái sân lên á, đôi khi thì trong đạo thì nói là cái sự sân là không tốt, nhưng mà anh nghĩ là trong đời á, đôi khi mình phải sân lên để cho mình có phản ứng để mình bảo vệ mình, hay là để làm gì đó. Nó cái sân như là nó cần thiết trong cái đời sống. Có cái cách nào, có cái cách khác không để đối phó với những cái
Thực ra khi mình sân để mình bảo vệ mình hay làm gì đó thì nó chỉ tạo ra một cái phiền não khổ đau. Còn mình bảo vệ, nhưng mà bảo vệ mình chia sẻ, mình làm một cái điều gì đó, nhưng mà đừng có để cái thái độ sân đó là khác, mà cái thái độ đó, cái thái độ trong cái sân đó. ví dụ như có khi mình lớn tiếng, mình nạt nộ người ta, nhưng mà trong đó nạt nộ đó là vì tình thương, nó không có cái thái độ ở trong đó. Nó khác một chút.
So he says that well, anger is not helpful. Right? You can deal with any problem without anger, without and with clarity, with calmness, right? With a better attitude. Anger itself, if you let anger be the guiding light, be the guide, then the attitude that comes in there is going to be a negative attitude, right? But you can process a situation that you may not be to your liking because you have good reason, right? Without anger, let's say if your kid did something wrong, there's two ways. You can be angry and allow the anger to take hold of you to cause you to react in a very specific way, like you hit that person, or your child, right? Or you can be, or that same situation brings you unpleasantness, okay? And the same situation, but if you're mindful of your thoughts, of your mind, of your feelings, you can solve the same problem without the anger, right? Because then you're moving to a different attitude, and it gives you a different solution to deal with the same problem. Does that suffice?
So I would agree for a child, it would probably never be appropriate to get angry because they're in such a weaker position. The time I got angry, and I don't get angry that often, it was a situation where another company tried to blatantly steal some intellectual property. Basically, they renamed their company the same name as my company, okay? And it was really just totally blatant. And so we had a phone call to discuss that, and I basically exploded on the phone call. But they immediately backed down, so maybe it was very effective, or maybe they would have backed down anyway.
Right, there you go.
I don't know.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Nhưng mà một phần nhiều là cái sân đó mình do là mình muốn bảo vệ cái bản ngã của mình đó, cho nên mình mới dễ nổi sân. Và khi mình thấy ra được cái bản ngã đó mà mình không còn bảo vệ cái bản ngã của mình thì cái sân nó từ nó sẽ hết. Và rồi thì tức là cái bản ngã nó muốn nó như nãy nói đó là nó luôn luôn nó phân ra làm hai, thì nó chọn lựa cái để nó cái gì cho cái bản ngã là cái gì nó thích, phải không? Cái nó thích, cái nó không thích, thì nó do đó mà nó muốn giữ cái nó thích, cho nên nó mới nổi sân. Còn khi mà nó muốn cho cái người kia tốt á, mà nó nói lớn tiếng đó, thì trong đó nó không có cái thái độ, nó chỉ có cái trạng thái sân, nhưng nó không có cái thái độ của cái sân đó. Nó hai cái đó phải phân biệt rõ. Một cái thái độ, một cái trạng thái, thì mình nghe cái gì trái là mình liền nổi cái sân lên, thì cái đó nó phải có. Còn cái thái độ của mình là mình phản ứng ra với đối tượng đó, thì cái thái độ đó nó mới là cái thái độ sân đó, nó mới cần phải dẹp. Còn cái sân mà nó nổi lên khi người ta nói không giữ ý hay là gì đó mình nổi sân, thì mình chỉ cần trở về để mình trọn vẹn, mình rõ biết nó thôi, mình không có thái độ nào phản ứng ra với đối tượng, thì nó từ từ nó hết.
Okay, so he wants to clarify about that. So it's the same example of anger. So the feeling of anger itself, right? That's less important than the attitude based on that, right? You can have different attitude. You can be angry at something. Somebody hit you, automatic reaction. There's anger. Things like that. You can't stop, right? But the attitude from that event is what you need to control. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
What
So for example, if I stay angry for a long time and it just boils inside of me, then that's just going to harm me.
Right. So let's say, for your example, right? Somebody steals something from you, right? You're going to be angry. Automatically, they just snatched your stuff, they run off. You're going to be angry, right? But you have a choice of an attitude, okay? Attitude of when you, let me see, is that a good example? So you can have attitude that I must get that back. I'm going to do anything to get that back, and I'm going to hurt that person for taking, right? Or they have an attitude of, okay, I want that back, and I'm going to try to get it back, right?
But maybe I won't.
And maybe you can have a third attitude of, I don't really need that. That person may need it more. Okay, I'm going to just donate it. Look at it at a different attitude. So there are different attitudes.
Quý vị cái giải thích chẳng hạn.
Yeah. So it's the attitude that we need to contain. We need to see from that experience, the feeling comes up, right? Anger come up, but what is the attitude? What is our attitude? We get to choose, right? And the only way that you can choose is to reflect back, to look back at yourself. What's going on? What is manifesting in the mind, right? What is that mental formation that comes up for you? And what is the mental fabrication, right? If we have the ability to stop momentarily to reflect on that, to see that, then that itself takes the fuel out of the fire and allows you to control your attitude or choose an attitude towards the situation.
I think what there is, the hard part is you always diffuse yourself in the beginning. This is not a good situation.
Yeah.
But I think the hard part for me or for other people is like the aftermath. It's always in your thought.
Right.
Constantly thinking about it. It starts eating at you.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. Sometimes you just can't get rid of it. You're just so annoyed with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some of that struggles
Mm-hmm.
within myself.
Okay. What happened is, yes, you're replaying it. Okay, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened? An event happened, right? It's over. 3 hours later, you go home. You try to go to sleep. You replay it. So what happens there? Memory. Memory happens. So a thought comes up, and that thought is an event that happened 2 hours ago. Okay? So there you go. Mind, thought object is that event in contact, right? What's after contact? Feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Okay, that's an unpleasant feeling, right? You don't see it so fast. It comes into mental formation. I hate that guy. Or, he's this way, that way, right? Right? And then it moves to mental formation. You have a mental formation, of that person, and then it manifests to fabrication. You're fabricating a story, or you're replaying that story with more stuff. You put in there, right? If you're not aware of that, then consciousness, you don't have the consciousness of all that, right? So what happens is that fabrication become the object of the mind now. So we're starting back again. That's one cycle. Second cycle. And now you're just building again, right? So how do you stop that? The practice is to, when there's feeling, know there's feeling. Observe, just recognize it, right? And sometimes in the Vipassana practice, sometimes there is a practice of noting. That may help. So let's say if unpleasant feeling comes up, anger comes up, jealousy comes up, or whatever comes up, when you recognize it, just note it in your mind. Anger. Right? So when you say anger, who is saying the anger? Who is seeing the anger? No, is your knowing, right? The non-ego, because the ego is angry, right? It can't see the anger because it is the anger, right? That's the ego. I am angry, right? But when you're able to see it, it's not I am anymore, but you're seeing the anger, right? Just seeing the anger itself, you just recognize it, just continue to look at it. And then what will happen if you're able to stay with it, what you will witness is impermanent, the law of impermanent. Things manifest based on conditions. When the condition is no longer there, then it fades away. Right? Everything is impermanent. Even the anger itself. If you look at it, if you're able to be conscious of the feeling, or let's say the anger itself, conscious of it, continue looking at it, you'll see it just disappear. The deeper you try to look into it, you won't find it. And so it's a practice. You should keep doing that throughout your life. Every experience, if you keep your awareness, conscious awareness, right? There's a difference between awareness and conscious awareness.
What's the difference?
The difference is awareness. Throughout our sense, we are always aware of something, but we are not necessarily conscious of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Conscious awareness is like, right now, I'm aware there's light there. There was a car passing by. How many people are here, right? There's a plant back there. There's a bell back there. There's my hat back there, right? I'm conscious of that. When I say it, then I give it a conscious attention, right? But I'm talking to you and looking at you, so I'm conscious of you, right? Everyone else is kind of a blur. That's the difference. Right? So what we're doing is we're bringing focus. That's why when we sit and meditate, what do? At first, to clear the mind, to have a clear mind so that we're focused. We focus on one thing. As I thought, we use our breath, right? We follow the breath. So we have that practice so that we can choose to be conscious more and more. Right? Yeah.
I think there is another way. I'm not sure if it's correct or not to feel less angry when something happened unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
Like in terms of karma. For example, if someone harm me or
mm-hmm.
another company
mm-hmm.
steal things from me, I would think about, normally I would naturally think about, oh, that person with that company
intentionally do that to harm me, right? But if think in terms of karma, I would think, oh, that person is not intentionally to harm me, just the karma behind that person somehow lead to his action and cause harm on me. And in that way, I feel like maybe I feel less angry.
Okay, yeah. So here, I'll try to put it another way. Somebody steals something from you, right? You're angry partly because that's mine. He's taken from me. That means he intentionally wants to hurt me. Versus he's stealing something that I have because he needs it, right? Two different perspectives will give you two different response, right? Which one is an easier response to deal with? He's not out to the reality. If he steals something from you, most likely it's not because he wanted to hurt you in any way, because he wants that object, right? He wants it for him, for his own. Right? It's when we get really trapped into the suffering part. Is like he wants to hurt me. They want to hurt me.
Well, that could hurt you. So if you steal information,
Yeah.
like, you would have a project manager, and they steal information from her spreadsheets or whatever.
Yeah.
That will hurt her in down the road.
Yeah.
So there is an intention there. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I know it. Yeah,
So-
if
If someone breaks into your car and steals change and they need money, that's
right.
one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're intentionally stealing your information to use it to their advantage to hurt you. That's how would you handle that?
Well, see, so they intentionally steal something from you to hurt your company. That's basically what you're trying. An example, right? Right. That stealing eventually will hurt you.
Your performance.
Your
Because
performance.
they take the information from you,
Mhm.
it betters them and puts you. Yeah.
Right. So that is a situation you got to solve, right? But the suffering is irrelevant to what you need to solve. You have a problem now, right? But the suffering, you don't have to suffer. You don't have to play in the mind. You don't have to fabricate these stories out that you suffer from. Now you just have a challenge of dealing with the problem of, okay, that person stole, whatever that is. So you're better off focusing on dealing with that problem versus suffering yourself, right? Having that anger, and you replay it in your mind. Your mind is no longer clear. You're thinking about revenge. Better yet, spend that time to figure out how to get it back.
She has a very good point when I listen to her. For me, when I hear that, when the situation arises, you recognize the situation as first. The second part of that is you accept the situation. That's what she raised the question about. Maybe that's a karma thing. And once you accept the situation, it stays there. If you arise other thoughts, then it will become suffering for you. That's what she meant. I understood what she said. That's why she brought up the karma thing. But the karma is just a word for me. But to me, accepting the situation, see the situation, accepting the situation, and it stays there. And it's done.
Yeah. So accepting the situation is seeing the situation as it is.
Yes.
Right. It is what it is. It's not, oh, he's trying to do this to me, or she's trying to do this.
Correct.
Right. The situation is he stole that from me, or she stole that from me.
Right.
That's the situation. There's no I here. There's no intentionally to hurt me. Although the situation may, bring consequences to you, right?
There's no need to dissect that.
But when you think like that, when you dissect that, that's when suffering occurs.
Correct.
Right. Is when you see the situation as is. That's when you don't suffer.
Right.
right? Let's say you're walking down a path. You see a bear, right? You're frightened, right? You're afraid. What are you afraid of?
You might die.
No, you're not afraid of that yet.
Bear.
You're afraid that he sees you, right? Okay, he sees you. What are you afraid of now?
Might move towards you.
Right.
That is.
He moves towards you. What are you afraid of?
Might keep moving towards you.
Eventually. He attacks you, right? Okay. So he attacks you. He has you. What are you afraid of?
Might bite.
Right. I might die. Right. So fear stops us from reacting correctly. Right. You're not seeing the situation as is. You're projecting what might be. You take that as your experience, right? So, similar to this, if we see the situation as is, then we don't necessarily have to do something unnecessary, right? We can have more clarity and solve the problem easier, right? Yes.
Yeah, or I put in another word, like the person who harm you or the company who harm you is not a real entity. It is empathy. It has lots of karma behind that entity. So there's no solid entity to harm you. When you think it, like there are so many interrelated things behind it, you don't see it really target to you. It's just a karma.
So what she's saying is there are intrinsic relationships that brings that becomes a condition for an event, right? So if you look at the way she looks at it, it's like, okay, if that person steals something from me, okay, there are many reasons for that. Not necessarily just the reason he wants to hurt me. Right? There are conditions that you don't see that create that event or create that person to do that. So the way that you look at that, if you look at that way, then that diffuses your anger, right? And you see the situation as is only. And you don't put more, you don't fabricate a story based on your self, I, then you don't suffer. Right? Would you agree with that?
I agree with the self-interpretation.
Yeah.
That's very good. Thank you.
You had something.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add up to story. It was the same situation that I was going through. Somebody stealing, but then whatever I was doing wasn't paid, but that person was taking the money instead of I was getting for my work.
Okay.
And then that caused me the credit card I've been using because I was injured. So what I was thinking, the different stories, like she took my money, I don't have it, so I saw my attachment to my finances, whatever, and then other stories, somebody stole it. So there would be complication, like different stories we have to deal with, right?
Yeah.
So,
right there.
complications, how to see.
Let's just say your story right there, right? There are actually two situations, not one. Right? One situation is she stole your wages, right? The other situation is you've got a credit card bill you have to pay. Right? So see it as it is and deal with it as it is, each situation on its own. If you try to intermingle those, then all you're going to do is do that cyclical suffering. they're just blaming the attitude about that person. And it doesn't solve your problem. You still have a problem. Now you still have a problem to worry about. And you're suffering at the same time. And you can't get out of that cycle. Right?
So non-attachment to finances, and also whatever happened is just kind of
Well,
observed.
okay. So what are here's another thing that may be the condition that caused that suffering is that, okay, what is the well, you can't say, oh, who cares if I owe money, I don't, I have a bill. You can't say that, but what is causing the suffering there is that the attachment is my finance should be always perfect. I shouldn't have any issue with my finance. See, so you create a condition for yourself that I cannot have that condition. When it doesn't match up with what you want, what you expect, then you suffer. You see? But if you have a mind of life is relative, things are going to happen. I may lose money, I may not have money, right? If you accept that, then you don't have to worry, you don't have to suffer when the condition comes that brings a challenge to you. Then all you see is, okay, I have a situation, and I just need to find a way to deal with the situation, solve the situation. Right? Is when we have a situation and our mind is, I wish I wasn't in this situation. The wanting mind, or the mind that doesn't want something. Those two minds is what can create your suffering. The mind that wants something that it doesn't have, or the mind that doesn't want something that it has. A condition that you have you don't want, right, can bring you suffering. That's because consciously or subconsciously you say, no, everything should be perfect. Everything should be the way I want it to be. Right? That's why you have that wanting and not wanting. You don't accept things as they are, as they come. Right? When you don't accept things as they come, then you're going to fall into that wanting and not wanting mind when the situation comes. And the thing is, you can't control what's external. You only can control what's in here and what you can do. Right?
Suffering is here, the mind and the
Right.
body
Right.
is bigger.
It's just like a racer. You're in a race, right? If you think you must be first, and you're not first, you're going to suffer. But if I'm going to race my best, I'm going to run my best, you won't suffer. If you have the acceptance already, right? That's my best race. Somebody runs better, right? Ran better than me.
Letting go.
Right. So there's no I in there. There's just a race to be raced, and you ran a race. Right? Versus you conjure up in your mind the situation, I must be first. And when you're not, when reality is not what you expect, then the mind suffers. Right?
Attachment to.
Right, your attachment to, what should be, I'm attached. I should be first. I should be number one. I should finish the race first. Is that attachment?
So just letting go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what happens if that happens? You're disappointed. Okay. The practice in everyday life is to observe and recognize what is going on. When you're sad, recognize that you're sad. When you're angry, recognize you're angry. When you're jealous, recognize that you're jealous. Just note it and watch it. You want to practice that, Watch completely. Put all your attention like you're watching your breath. See what happens next time you're angry, or next time you have some kind of ill feeling. or even a pleasurable feeling. See, you concentrate the mind where you, once you recognize it, observe it. Put all your attention to observe it completely. See what happens. Not just let it, just acknowledge it and just let it linger. But really watch it, see what happens. You'll see the law of impermanence will work. You see it at play. It's just like the second patriarch of China for the Zen tradition, Hui Ka. He came to Bodhidharma, which is the first patriarch of the Zen tradition, because I have this ill feeling in my mind. Can you pacify that for me? And the masters told him, okay, show me that feeling and I'll pacify it for you. So what he does, he looks inside, he looks into his mind, he looks into the feeling, and he can't find it. And the master said, yeah, I pacified it for you. Right? And what that means is your suffering is always in your mind. It's not about what's out there. Right? And the fixation of I must have things my way is the condition that attribute to suffering. So always remind yourself that life is what it is. You're just a dancer. You're just part of it. You just do your part. You have no control. But you have control of your mind if you know how to exercise it. So if you're suffering, don't look out there to stop your suffering. Look in here. Reflect right away. Observe the mind. Feelings, observe the feeling. What is it? Note it if you need to. Right? That's the quickest way to get out of the cycle of suffering. Anything else anybody have to share?
Once you have reacted, once you already reacted, then it's hard to sort of
Okay, right here, right there. Your reaction, once you reacted, that becomes the object.
Then you don't see yourself.
Okay, right? That becomes your object. You're not looking at what had happened. You're always looking at the present moment. What is present right now? What is present in my mind? What is the feeling in my mind? Right? So anger may come. Let's say anger may come and it may go, and it may come back. Right? It may be about the same situation, but what you need to look at and observe is the anger here and now, not what you had felt previously. So it's always now. It's always now. Right? It may change. Your feeling may change under condition. The same situation, right? As you process this, first it may be anger, and it may be something else. Do you know what it is? If you don't know what it is, you are it. But if you can reflect and see, look into the mind, reflect. So oftentimes and one way to do this is watch all aspects of yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally. Emotionally would be anger, the feeling of anger, feeling of dissatisfaction. Right? Mind, that means the thought. What thoughts are you creating? Right? If you're creating a thought, you're not conscious. If you're able to recognize a thought, then you're conscious. You're no longer a thought. So you stop the manifestation of that thought. Right? And it shows up in your body as well. Okay. When you're angry, what happens to the body? Tension. There's tension. What happens to the breath?
It's not regular.
It's not regular. Oftentimes, short, even holding your breath. Right? So, if you recognize that, you do the opposite.
And the hand might start shaking.
Your hand is shaking, your shoulder may comes up, right? You feel chest pressure or even heat here, right? So those, if you start to recognize those things, and every time you have an experience, recognize, observe the body, see what's happening. You may find a pattern that you have for certain reaction. Some people, when they're angry, they react a different way than another person on a physical sense. Right? Okay. Now, observe yourself when you go through these feelings, these processes. See how you are processing these things. Right? If you look far enough, if you keep looking at it, you will find your pattern. Okay. Why is it good to find the pattern? Because when you recognize through the pattern, then you recognize. It helps to recognize that you have that feeling, right? The bodily feeling is tactile, is slower, so it's easy to detect, right? Feelings really quick. It's harder to catch, right? Thought is even faster. So we recognize what the body is telling us to inform us of what we may be feeling or what we may be thinking. So let's say I'm angry. I'm just burned out. I'm tying up. Now I notice this. I do the opposite. So the opposite is to relax everything, right? The breath is a perfect tool to do that, because you cannot take a conscious long breath and tighten up your whole body. You can't. Anatomically, you cannot do that. So that's what you do. Oftentimes what I do is when I catch myself, I look at my breath and I breathe. Slowly and consciously. It has to be consciously. It doesn't have to be deep, but it has to be conscious. Okay. So, what is the process happening here? I'm diffusing my tension, my anger, physically. Okay. Mentally, what am I doing? I'm focusing on something other than what is triggering me. So I'm working both. I'm not involved in the anger, right? So I'm redirecting, so I'm taking the fuel that is feeding my anger. So try that sometime. See if it works. It takes time. It's not going to be like you're going to be all happy, right? It's a practice. It takes time to do this.
Question. So practically, it's faster to get rid of the anger by focusing on the breath or by changing the perception, the thought. Which one is faster?
Which one is more
effective?
Okay. I say both are effective. What is easier for you?
Mm-hmm. I want to share some tips, because I also noticed my pattern of getting angry on certain things. For example, like when William did something make me angry, I start to have a tunnel vision, focusing on what he did is wrong. But after I noticed this pattern, when I'm not angry, I keep a list of the things that he did good in the past. So whenever he make me angry, I take out the notes and I read it. So that's an effective way to change perception. So maybe apply both can help.
What is not helpful is you focusing on what's making you angry. Right? If that person is making you angry, don't focus on that person. If you're focused on that person, that means you're accepting the field. to burn the anger that you have. That person is not, is the suffering is not there. The suffering is here, right? The suffering is here. So you know, like, here I'll give you an example. A person comes, burn down start a fire in your house. What do? Do you chase that person, or do you get water and stop that fire? Right? What's more effective if you don't want your house to burn down? Right? Same thing. If that person is creating creating a situation where you're angry, don't focus on that. Don't feel the
She
anger.
was focusing on the good. Is that okay then, or because she pulled off this list
Yeah.
of good stuff? Or
Right.
whatever.
If it works, yeah. If it works,
Okay.
whatever. See, the thing is, whatever you can do, what is in your, quickly accessible for you to get rid of the suffering, right? And then you can deal with the situation. So if for some people it's just, they have a mantra, when they're angry or they're afraid, they just recite the mantra. So what are they actually doing when they're reciting? They're not focusing on what's creating suffering for them. They're focusing on the mantra. So they're cutting off the field, right? So whatever works for you. Mantra, have a nice list. If you're able to see your feelings, contact body, you do that. If you're quick to identify a thought, and then you just identify the thought, then you do that. Whatever is accessible.
I had a joke too about the fire.
Huh?
Somebody comes and tried to start fire, so give him some water and oxygen.
Water and oxygen.
Go ahead, but
Yeah. Let the house burn down as long as he has oxygen. Yeah.
like in that case, I can say, okay, take all of my money, but then our attachment to this money is causing the problem.
You're attached to. I shouldn't have this situation.
Right, you do want to get the money back,
Yeah.
but you don't want to suffer internally, because the suffering doesn't solve the problem,
Right. Right.
just suffering.
So we're not here to change your world so that you're in heaven, okay? Right? Hell is suffering. Heaven is contentment. Right? What does contentment mean? Whatever condition it is, I know it is. I'm okay with it. I'll deal with it. Right? That's the difference between heaven and hell. So it's not we're not practicing here to change so that we live happily in the world that we want to live in, but we're practicing so that we have that suffering. We can control our suffering. We can get rid of it, unnecessary suffering. Right? It's like the Buddha said, there's suffering in the world. That's the first arrow. Right? There's suffering you can, so that's the second arrow. We don't want the second arrow. We want to practice so we don't have the second arrow. First arrow is enough.
So can the same thing apply to if you're not feeling confident about yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't feel confident about your work or
Your work?
Yeah.
Right. So when you don't feel confident, tell me, what do you feel?
I don't feel good about myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next time, when you have a sense of not feeling, or when you feel not confident, pay attention to what are the feelings that you have, the actual feelings. Okay? Is it fear? Right?
Yeah.
What is it? What? And scan your body. Notice how you're feeling. and then take the breath. Try to get rid of that physical feeling. That's feeding, right? And then look at fear, and then just confident. If you don't feel confident, okay, you feel fearful, right? Just look at just note it, fear. Just note it until, as if you're going to see it to its end. Okay? Then that will subside your feeling, right? And now you have more clarity to look at the situation that you need to solve. Okay? What is making you not feel confident? Is there something that you didn't do? Is there something that's challenging that you haven't dealt with? What is it? Right? So, we're getting rid of all this suffering here so that we have clarity, so we can clearly see what we need to adjust. Right? Because when you're not confident about something, you have a situation, you have a goal to achieve, but you don't feel like you can achieve the goal, right? So the solution is to find out what are the factors that will help you achieve your goal to the best of your ability. Okay? You have to think best of ability, not what you want. Those are two different things. Not what you expect. Okay? What is your best that you can do? What is the goal? What is the best you can do?
Doesn't mean it's gonna happen, but
Right.
yeah.
Right. See?
Yeah.
When you say it must happen, right, then that's when you're going to go into trouble. But your best ability, I'm going to give it all my all. Right? I'm going to do everything I need to do. Right? It may not happen as I, wanted, but then it's okay because I've done. At least you've done your best, and you feel good about doing your best, and you don't have to waste your time and energy about, not meeting expectation right?
Right.
Because what else can you do? You can't. If you've done your best, what else can you do, right? Right? There's nothing else you can do, so why worry about it? Right?
I know this is my first session.
Hi.
Can I share something with the group?
Yeah, please.
Something I practiced for many years, almost 10 or more years. The thing I do is if you can try this yourself, you figure out it's going to be very hard. But with a long term, it will help. It's observing yourself every single seconds. If you can try it now, after about 2 minutes, you forgot about observing yourself again. And that observation about yourself, the way he mentioned, he just mentioned. But if you put that to practice, it becomes a habit.
Mm-hmm.
When it becomes a habit, when the situation arises, suddenly you go back to you automatically, very fast.
Yeah.
That's why the term ta is very real. Suchness, it is what it is, it's very real. Meaning but that practice, it took me at least 3 to 4 years to actually understand it.
How many hours you practice every day?
24 hours you can. So when you sleep, you're not aware of it, right? Essentially, the practice is to have an awareness of yourself. You walk, you're aware. You go into the car, you're aware. You turn on your car, you turn on, and you go, you're aware of yourself. You always like a practice of being aware of yourself. So when things happen, suddenly you already practice aware of yourself. But so when things happen, it is what it is.
Are you saying awareness more of your actions or your internal thoughts and emotions?
It's the awareness that he taught us, awareness of your mind, your body, and your feelings. But in the simplest thing is aware of your feelings. That's all. If you just learn to be aware of, you try to be you imagine a person in front of you observing you. That's what it is. So essentially what happens is when you have a situation where you have to walk through the mud, you're aware that you're not walking through the mud. And you lift your legs, you walk through another one. and you get out of your mud. The difficulty, I challenge you, you go home and you try for 5 minutes, you say, okay, now I'm going to aware of myself. Doesn't matter what people do, people watch TV, people eat, whatever, you have to be aware of yourself. In 2 minutes, 5 minutes, oh, I forgot, I need to do it again. That becomes a practice to the point where it becomes a habit. The habit becomes a reflex to you.
Yeah.
So what he said is very simple, but you need to be there.
And then what will happen if you keep doing that, become a habit?
So you don't have to interpret anymore. You don't have to say, oh, that person hurts me, or that's karma that I have in the past. None of that is gone. Those are gone.
Right.
Don't, like he said, it is what it is. And just like you meditate, you may have thoughts. Thoughts is one thing, but you may also have long-term memories, short-term memories. It pops up, and if you look at it, because you already observe, you already practiced that. Boom, it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's a very nice concept, but it's very hard to do.
Yeah. It's easy but difficult. I mean, yeah. It's no, not easy. It's simple. It's simple,
Yeah.
but difficult.
Yeah.
Right? So what he's talking about, and he's right. It becomes a reaction, a habit, a reflex. You know, as if somebody throws a ball at me and it's in my peripheral, I either duck or I catch it. It becomes just like that. But it requires constant practicing to get to that point. Right? And there are other practices that will help that. Okay, so don't multitask. Okay, because when you're multitasking, your mind is moving in many directions. You're not concentrating, right? When you look at yourself, you really have to let go of things around you to reflect back, to look back. So multitasking is just the reverse of that, right? Reverse of meditation is multitasking. Okay? When we're meditating, we're doing it. Well, we're essentially looking back at ourselves, right? That's part of the meditation. Now you can do that in life meditation. Sitting meditation, you sit down, you be still, so you can see things a little clearer. Nothing is distracting, so distracted. Out there's a little more stuff to distract you, but you still can practice, right? When you eat, focus on eating. Don't watch TV, don't do that. Just watch on TV. You know, and use your senses. Okay, what does it smell like? What does it taste like? What is the texture? Right? See, that in itself is a practice of looking in. Self again. Right? And speaking about meditation, I want to talk about this. Okay, to make your meditation easier. And another thing, when you're reflecting, when you're looking back, get rid of judgment. Okay, there's nothing to judge here. That's how you're operating right now. Accept it. If you're angry, accept it. Okay, that's how. You know, that's just being, right? That's how that is your being at that moment. Right? Just accept it. Observe. More important that you recognize it. Okay, so when you in your meditation, there are 3 phases that you're going to be in. Okay, the first phase is what? You have good attention, you're focused, right? Then the mind gets bored, or a thought becomes that is more attractive, or sound may distract you. You're going to fall in phase 2, mind wandering, or non-awareness, non-conscious awareness. Okay, conscious awareness, awareness without consciousness, right? You're aware of something, or you're distracted by something, right? That's going to happen. Don't worry about that. That's part of the process, okay? And then eventually, you come to a moment, what I call awakening, or remembering, I'm supposed to be focusing on this, right? Right at the moment, as quickly as you can, bring yourself back to your point of focus, your point of attention. Most importantly, without judgment. Because if you have judgment, then you fall back into phase 2. The mind is judging. Oh, I should have done this. Oh, why am I like this? Why can't I keep my focus? Don't worry. So the most important thing is phase 3 here. Quickly come back without judgment. As you do that, it's like playing tennis. Every time you see the ball, you come back, you hit the ball. But if you think about if you judge yourself, you miss the ball. Okay? Right? So you focus, you lose your focus, you lose your awareness, that's fine. The moment that you notice that, come back right away. When you practice that, it's just like it reflects what he said. You're able to come back a lot quicker. Okay? So if you find yourself after 2-3 months, and you find yourself, wait a minute, I wander too much, I have to keep coming back. That's a good sign.
Another way to practice when you go to work, I'm retired now, but when you go to a meeting, people talk, what happened to you? Sometimes you think ahead because of your knowledge. So you think ahead, and then you actually capture his thinking, and then you want to change his thinking, you want to deal with his thinking.